Hey 7th graders, Miss Opp here. Today we're going to be learning about the percent equation. Let's get started. Our learning target for today is I can solve problems using a percent equation. Our new vocabulary is percent equation, which is an equivalent form of a percent proportion in which the percent is written as a decimal. So jumping right in, our percent equation is part equals percent times the whole, where the percent is written as a decimal. You need to write this down. So we are going to look at this first one where we are going to find the part. So we're finding 6% of 525. So first we're just going to do a quick estimate. 1% of 500, which is really darn close to 525, is 5. So 6%, we'd multiply that 5 by 6 to get 30. So I'm estimating that 6% of 525 is going to be close to 30. Well, let's find out for sure. So taking our percent equation, part equals percent times the whole. Our percent is 6% and the whole is 525. We need to find that part. Okay, so letting P represent part, I'm going to write 6% as a decimal, which is 0 and 0 hundredths, or in 600ths, excuse me. So 600ths times 525 gives us our part of 31 and 5/10. Okay, so let's try a couple more. What number is 35% of 88? Looking at our percent equation, part equals percent as a decimal times the whole. Our percent, 35%, can be written as 35 hundredths. So 35 hundredths times 88 gives us our part of 30 and 8/10. We're going to find 15% of 275 using our percent equation of part equals percent as a decimal times the whole. 15% is 15 hundredths. So we're going to take percent 15 hundredths times our whole of 275 to get our part of 41 and 3/10. In some instances, the percent or the whole are unknown instead of the part being unknown. So we're going to solve the percent equation for the missing value. So this time we're going to solve for the percent. So 420 is what percent of 600? First, we're going to do a quick estimate. We know that 420 is really close to 400, and 600 equals 600. And we know that 400 over 600 can be simplified to 2/3, which is 63 and 2/3%. So my estimate is that our percent is going to be really close to 66 and 2/3%. Let's find out for sure. So the part is 420, the whole is 600. We need to find the percent. We're going to let n represent that percent. So plugging in what we know to our percent equation, which is part equals percent times the whole, we're going to plug it in. We know our part is 420, percent is n, and whole is 600. So we're left with 420 equals n times 600. To isolate n all by itself, we're going to divide each side by 600, and we're going to be left with n equals 7/10. Since 7/10 equals 70%, 420 is 70% of 60. Note that the answer that we got, n equals 7/10, is a decimal. We must convert that to a percent. To get from decimals to percents, we multiply by 100. I want you to try these next two on your own, so pause the video here and check back to see how I do it. 62 is what percent of 186? As a reminder, our percent equation is part equals percent times the whole. We have 62 as our part, and we have 186 as our whole. We're going to find that percent. So let's see how we do that. So our part is 62. We're going to fill that in. 62 equals our percent n times our whole, 186. Okay, to get n all by itself, we're dividing both sides by 186. So n equals 3/10 repeating. 3/10 repeating, so we have 0, 0 and 3/10 repeating times 100 to convert it into a percent. We get 33 and 3/10 repeating percent. Looking at this next one, what percent of 750 is 6? We have part equals percent times whole. Again, we are left with what percent n of our whole 750 is our part 6. That one's worded a little differently. Okay, so whole is 750 and our part is 6. Okay, let's see how we solve that one. So writing this through, I flipped it here, so our variable is on the left side, so I moved it, and so it's percent times whole equals part. It doesn't matter, it is still going to be the same answer. Okay, so we have n times 750 equals 6, dividing both sides by 750 to isolate n all by itself. We get that n equals 0 and 8 thousandths. To get that decimal as a percent, we know we have to multiply it by 100. So I'm going to move that decimal place 2 places to the right. And so we get that 6 is 8/10% of 750. So we found the part, we found the percent, now we're going to find the whole. 65 is 52% of what number? So our part is 65, our percent is 52%, we're trying to find the whole. First we're going to estimate. 65 is 50%, which is really close to 52% of 130. So we think our answer is going to be around 130. Let's find out for sure. The part is 65, the percent is 52. We need to find the whole. We're going to let W represent the whole. So filling in what we know into part equals percent times whole, we have 65 equals, we moved that percent 52 into our decimal, 52 hundredths. 52 hundredths times W. To get W all by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 52 hundredths, and we get that W equals 125. So 65 is 52% of 125. Try these next two on your own, come back and see how I did it. So 210 is 75% of what number? 210 is our part, and 75% is our percent, and we need to write as a decimal. 75% is 75 hundredths. So we're going to fill in what we know into our percent equation. We have part 210 equals 75 hundredths, which is our percent, times our whole n. Okay, so to get n all by itself, we're going to divide both sides by 75 hundredths, and we get that n, or our whole, is 280. So 210 is 75% of 280. 54 is 18% of what number? 54 is our, 54 is our part. 18% is our percent, which written as a decimal is 18 hundredths, and our left with our whole. So part equals percent times whole. Let's figure out how we're going to solve that. Plugging in what we know, we have 54 as our part equals 18 hundredths as our percent times our whole. We're going to divide both sides by that 18 hundredths to isolate n all by itself, and we get that n equals 30, or 54 is 18% of 300. Here is a table representing everything that we just went through. The type of percent equation, the type of wordage you'll see, then the equation for it. I want you to write this down. Okay, let's look at some real life examples here. Marguerite's parents are buying her a motor scooter. The scooter costs $244. If a 6% sales tax is added, what is the total cost of the scooter? There are two ways that we can solve this. I'm going to show you both ways. The first way is to find the amount of tax first. Okay, so when we do that, the whole is 244. The percent is 6%. We need to find the amount of the tax, or the part. Okay, we're going to let T represent the amount of tax. So plugging that into our percent equation, we have part equals percent times the whole. T is our part, 6% or 6/100 is our decimal percent, and 244 is our whole. Okay, so when we solve that, we get 6/100 times 244. We get the T, the amount of tax, is $14.64. So if the tax is $14.64, we have to add that to the whole of the scooter to find the total cost. So we have 244, which is how much the scooter cost, plus $14.64, which is the tax. So the cost of that scooter in total is $258.64. The other way to solve it is to find the total percent first. To do that, we are going to find 100%, because we have to pay the whole cost of the scooter, plus the 6%, which equals 106% of the $244 cost of the scooter to find that total cost, including tax. We're going to let T represent the total cost. So in this situation, our part is the total, including tax. Our percent as a decimal is 1 6/100, because we're finding 106% of the cost. Then our whole is 244. So when we take 101 6/100, times that whole cost of the scooter, 244, we will get the total cost of the scooter being $258.64. You can see both ways we got the same answer. Just method 2 was had one step before we did the math. Method 1 had 2 steps after we found the math. Okay, both ways work. So let's try one on our own. Zach bought a television that cost $350. Since he lives in Rhode Island, a 7% sales tax was added. What was the total cost of the television? We're going to do this using method 2. We're going to find that total percent first. So the TV, we have to pay 100% of that cost. The tax is an additional 7%. So when we add the cost of the TV, that 100%, plus the sales tax on it, which is 7%, we get that we're going to have to pay 107% of the cost of that TV in order to walk away with that TV. So from that, we know that we're going to have to plug that into our percent equation. So we're going to have the total cost equals the percent times the cost, the whole cost of that TV. So our total that we're paying equals 107%, which written as a decimal is 1 7/100, times the cost of the TV, which is $350. Which when we plug that into our calculator, we get $374.50. So the total cost for the TV is $374.50. Don't forget, for better understanding, you can rewatch this video. You can read the examples in the book. You can YouTube the topic and watch other videos on it. And as always, please ask questions. Your next step is to go take the video quiz on Schoology. There are steps below how to get there. We are on section 5-7. Happy quizzing!